to drink and to smoke to take away the pain. And I don't remember all of my mistakes and every high I got along with no one blame. You're not alright, I'm not alright. And so, when I'm out in the shade and I'm feeling away, baby, hello. I just wanted to see the plans of a change of my soul. Gotta fight with the love with a rush and I don't wanna let go. So don't let me go.
Let me check the audio.
I just wanted to see the plans of a change of my soul.
Could be better. We'll get there. Let me know. Let me know how it is. Pull up the chat in the meantime. Sometimes it needs a second to settle. Try again. We're just going to flow with it for a few.
Take away the pain. You like to drink and to smoke to take away the pain. And I don't remember all the mistakes and every high I got along with no one blame. You're not alright, I'm not alright. So, when I'm out in the shade and I'm feeling away, baby, I know. I just wanted to see if your plans of a change my soul. Gotta fight with a love with a rush and I don't wanna let go. So don't let me go. Gotta do patience, conversation, driving you up the wall. I'm perfect.
Yeah, God, it's no sarcasm at all.
You say it's sorry.
I don't know what you're sorry for.
No point in keeping score. You like to drink and smoke to take away the pain. I don't count all the mistakes and every high. No one thing.
I'm not alright. I'm not alright.
I like to drink and smoke, take away the pain. You don't remember all the mistakes and you and I don't belong in a place like this, baby. Let's roll. We don't need.
Yeah, I hope the audio gets better too. Some other stuff. But in the meantime, let me know if it's really crisp. And we'll pick something else. Just for clarity's sake. But let me know because I do have a few more songs. Oh, baby. Something popped up today, actually. That was quite interesting.
Britney Spears' 20-year-old son, Sean Preston, has changed his last name publicly from Federline to Spears. A lot of kids, once they get older, realize who was the actual problematic parent, the one doing everything for selfish reasons. And I know a lot of people think Kevin Federline was this great father, but he absolutely got in the middle of both of his sons' relationships with their mom. And when $40,000 per child in child support wasn't enough, and he tried to get that doubled so he could take care of all 5 of his kids on Britney's dime. And remember this tell-all book about the mother of his child? Yeah, that wasn't spiteful and for a quick buck. Not at all. That man is so manipulative. And I want to say this. I hope her son is doing this out of love and support for his mother. I really, really want to believe that. And
yeah, I do too. Because
Britney Spears, I believe, an aspiring artist, musician. I just really hope this is for the right reasons. She's been through enough.
that was Jay DeMilo. So yes, hopefully. But also, eventually kids figure out who the problem was. And end up wanting to disown and detach themselves from their shitty fathers. Even to the point of not wanting their name anymore. Did you hear that, pie face? What's up? Ramen. Enjoy your snack. Is the audio still funny? We'll get through it. I don't know why, but this one's calling me. Okay.
Locals refer to this area as the... It was April 9th, 2025, when the YouTube channel Man Dog Wild released a new video. At first glance, it appeared to be just another of his regular outdoor adventures, an evening hike through the mountains with his loyal companion Yeti. The landscape was calm and breathtaking. Locals refer to this area as the Skinwalker Mountains, a region surrounded by eerie folklore, strange sightings, and countless stories of unexplained activity. The hike began peacefully, the air cool and clean as daylight faded. Yeti ran along the trail with her usual enthusiasm, but then her behavior suddenly changed. She slowed down, stopped, and stayed unusually close, as if guiding her owner towards something unseen.
Yeti is either one of two things. She's very simple, Doc. She's either completely unstable and constant zoomies, or she's very serious. And right now she's slowed down and she'll stop and she'll want me to follow her, to take me somewhere or show me something. And at this point, now she's not going to stray too far from me because now she wants to show me something. We've just been out here exploring. Actually, we usually do around this time, a little earlier than this. It's getting a bit dark now. And we've been on one of these abandoned roads that go to nowhere. They've just been left. Walking these dirt roads, and Yeti comes across this little trail. She slowed down and she wants to show me. See, she's right there. She's not running. She's not got the zoomies as she normally does. She's staying close by. She's sensing something.
Their route veered away from the main trail and onto a narrow, overgrown path that felt untouched for decades. The deeper they went, the heavier the silence grew. Then, hidden beneath the trees, they stumbled upon something disturbingly out of place.
I've been craving orange juice, actually.
Here's your chicken out.
It's just...
That's just scary.
In the middle of the path sat a small stroller, half buried in weeds and soil. Yeah. Inside was a doll, its face worn and cracked almost lifelike in the dim, fading light. The placement seemed deliberate. They were miles from homes, roads, or campsites. Whoever carried it here had done so on purpose. Nearby, carved deep into a large rock, was something even more unsettling.
Oh, this we're at plantation now.
Yes. like your air fryer?
My sister.
Sometimes. I'm genuinely curious. I grew up in a restaurant and I don't have one. So I get very curious about if it's just like a hyped up thing or if it's like a beneficial thing to have. It works like an actual fryer, but without actually adding all of the oils in it. Can see the draw to that for sure, especially for people who prefer to watch what they eat more carefully. Oh, sometimes. I wondered if there was another side of the opinions. Like I've heard some people love them, but are they the same as an oven? You know, is my question. Is it just something that's hyped up, or is it like just a small oven? Or is it really like a fryer? Curious.
What is that?
I like that. I do.
So, this is where she leads us?
Tea. I think that's too hot. Much too hot. I can fix that.
That's super strange, huh? Like bird. Into the rock. So obviously these mountains are strange places. Someone's come out here and made this. They've made this. I don't know what to make of this. What's your guys' thoughts on this? I have no idea.
Thank you.
Maybe it's some kind of worshiping thing. Maybe it's just a
Hey,
sign.
little kitten, how are you?
Maybe hunters.
Oh, I'm
Kind
glad
of
you're
marker.
happy.
I don't know.
How's your new little bunny friend?
A dark scorched symbol.
How you doing?
It looked ritualistic, as though it had been burned into the stone by fire.
I know,
Its
send me
meaning
Germany.
was impossible to understand, but its
Send me
precision
love.
hinted at purpose. Was it a warning, a ritual sign,
You
or
can cook chicken in half the time an oven can. New bunny happy. Good. Are you happy? I know you've been through a lot. Nice. I'm glad to see you here. Good. And it comes out juicy in the center and nice on the outside. I'm so curious. Good. Wrap it in tin foil. Probably saves on the cleanup too.
something far more sinister? As they turned to leave, faint movement caught his attention on a distant ridge.
This is like a fryer. Gotcha. I'm gonna keep the moisture in. Smoky smoke. Toky toke. Toky smoke. He's quiet. He's quiet. Kitties are good. One's eating. The other's resting.
Plantation.
Thank you.
Let's just wait till we take some figure out. I'm gonna go around. I definitely saw like caught the video also and I took a look. I don't know. Obviously, maybe we could have did the same thing and we all turned our lights off and
I want something a little bit more upspeed than this. This is quite interesting. I'm going to put a pin in that one for now. So 2 hours of multiple stories on that one. but a lot of it's this guy talking. I just scrolled forward. It's just a lot of people camping and stuff.
I investigated these 3 sightings that defy all logic. This episode will take you through 3 accounts of the supernatural with shocking and disturbing similarities that all.
This is what lurks beneath. Lurks beneath. The other one also, I still think it's a good Grim Encounters. I think it's a good. I'm interested. I want to hear it, but I think it's more of like a slow burn, a little bit. I want to hear what this is. This is shorter. I don't know how long I'll be here, but.
Me to believe one thing. You won't want to miss this one. This episode is sponsored by ZocDoc. Stories like this.
Right on, man.
Community, Hillcrest Trailer Park home in Withell, Worcestershire, England. The community, Hillcrest Trailer Park, seemed like the perfect place for raising a small family. And this family already consisted of a married couple and their 2 young sons. Now, when they first moved in, everything seemed relatively mundane. I mean, the trailer park was pretty average. It was quiet. The neighbors were friendly. And of course, the price was just right for a young family trying to make ends meet. Now,
that's a fun. It's cute and funny when they do that. But I will say, a lot of people don't know this. If you're going to do that, it's really better not to. But if you're going to do it, don't take your finger off the laser button and make it disappear, because that's actually really confusing. It's like gaslighting a cat can make them kind of go insane. Hi, babies. Because all of a sudden they're chasing something, this little dot, and they kind of like they were chasing a mouse. But imagine the mouse were just to like vanish in thin air. They look around and they're all confused, just like they do with the light when that happens. But you can't really explain that it's just a light to a cat, and so it just fucks with their head. So if you're going to do it, make sure the light stays on, and they can kind of keep track of it to a degree. Otherwise, it's kind of better to use one like the fishing pole toys or something. But I know what you mean. It's so cute when they do that and fun, especially when they jump. Leap to get it. They're so fun. I love playing with my cats like that. But when I learned that piece of information a number of years ago, I stopped using the LED lasers with them. I still play with them like that, just not with those. It's fun. It's a fun play with kitties. It's just not nice to confuse them. So I don't like to do that. Most people would have no idea. It's a very innocent mistake, because I think that's not a very common piece of information. I don't know why. I just kind of learned it in passing years ago somewhere. I don't remember even where, but. Yeah, no, you could kind of still gaslighting, but yeah. Because then they lift their paws and they look for it. Like, I thought I got it. Where'd it go? It's a little confusing for the kitty brains. I get it. Can I clean your face? Oh, stuff on your face. What? Do you have a nice nappy? I can tell. You know, actually, why you get sunburned on cloudy days? You can get more sunburned on a cloudy day in some cases than you can on a sunny day, interestingly enough. And that is because, you know how you're supposed to, like, you can get more burned if you're out on a lake or you're by a body of water where it's sunny, because the sun will reflect off of the lake and then amplify the rays onto your skin so you can burn easier and faster. It's the same thing with the clouds, but instead of the clouds, instead of the sun bouncing off the water's reflection and then onto you, it's beaming through the clouds, which are just water vapor droplets, really. It's just hype. You don't really like the Ninja Fryer? So I've heard mixed reviews. And that's why I get curious to know if it's like a preference thing, or if it's like a brand thing, or a quality thing, or I don't know. Yeah, it might be a learning curve too. It's like it's. I need to just do some recipes. No hair in my tea, please. Thank you. I love you, though. Hi, Dan. What's up? Cowboy face. This want to taste? My tea?
Spent her days taking care of the boys while Noelle worked, and in the evenings they'd all gathered together for dinner before the kids went up to bed. It was a simple life, but they were happy. However, after they'd been living there for just a few weeks, some of their neighbors started making odd comments. One elderly woman who lived just a few plots down pulled Barbara aside one day while she was hanging laundry and basically told her that she needed to be careful living in their spot, which was plot 73. Well, Barbara was thinking of juvenile delinquents or crime or something to that effect. So when Barbara asked what she meant, she was surprised to see that the woman just shook her head and then walked away. Now, obviously, Barbara wasn't really sure what to make of it, so she kind of just let it go. But this woman kept making these odd comments here and there, and it really kept grabbing at her attention, like warnings mostly. But in the end, she couldn't really get much information no matter how much she tried, so she just ended up forgetting all of it. But then, 2 months after they had moved in, their 7-year-old son, Leon, started experiencing something truly bizarre. Now, the first time it happened, Leon woke up in the middle of the night. Leon had gone to sleep on his right side, facing the wall, with his blanket tucked under his chin, just the way he liked it. But when he woke up, he was now on his left side, facing the room, and his blanket was down by his waist. He figured that he must have just moved in his sleep, even though he's never been much of a restless sleeper. So he's like, wow, I can't believe I moved that much. And so he pulled the covers and readjusted and went back to sleep. But then, on the next night, it happened again, and it happened again the night after that. He would find himself having to readjust so much that it just seemed strange. And so he would carefully position himself before sleep now, and each time he'd wake up, he'd be in a completely different position, and he was starting to get scared. After this goes on for about a week, something terrifying happens. In the middle of the night, Leon suddenly woke up, and just like before, he was completely repositioned. All of a sudden, he feels this
I love spring peepers. I love the sound of them. I think they're so. I just got chills. I think they're so relaxing. I think it's too cold for them right now. Here, still a little bit, maybe, but probably pretty soon.
Pressure against his back, like he's sharing the bed with someone, like there's another small body pressed right up against him in bed. For him, it feels like there's another kid lying there, spooning him from behind, and he starts freaking out. His heart's racing, and because he knows that his brother is asleep in the next room. Unsure of what to do, he just cries out for his parents, but to his surprise, he can't make a sound. His mouth opens, but nothing can come out. It's like his voice has been stolen. And all of a sudden, the pressure against his back, it lifts. And whatever was pressed up against him is now gone. Leon has this brief moment where he thinks that he's safe, But that's when some movement catches his attention out of the corner of his eye. And he looks, and there's something over by the lamp on his bedside table. And there, clustered around the lamp, are these three small figures, no bigger than dolls. And he can't really think of a better way to describe what he's seeing than to say that the first thing that came to his mind were, these are goblins, complete with wrinkled faces and pointed ears, wearing ridiculous purple waistcoats and pointed caps. I mean, if it wasn't so frightening, he might have laughed, but he was terrified. He's the butt of some sick joke because it's these things that are laughing, and the three of them are pointing at him. And they're not laughing in a happy way either. They're giggling in this high-pitched,
maniacal,
nefarious way. And Leon's skin is crawling. He's terrified. He knows that they're going to hurt him in some way. And keep in mind that this poor kid is frozen to his bed. He can't move. All he can do is just watch as these things start fluttering around his lamp. And they're kind of dancing and spinning in the air as if they have invisible wings. And they occasionally look down and they laugh even harder, as if they're just feeding off of his fear. Leon again tries to scream for help, but he can't bring himself to actually push air through his vocal cords. There's nothing that comes out. He is completely paralyzed, and he's forced to watch this horrible scene in front of him. And all of a sudden, they just disappear. When that happens, he's relieved to discover that he can move and speak again. And he immediately jumped out of bed, ran to his parents' room, and this kid is just sobbing. And he's trying to explain what happened. Barbara and Noelle didn't really know what to make of their son's behavior, but they were very, very concerned because this kid didn't just have a nightmare. I mean, he was traumatized by whatever happened, but because of the nature of it, they just assumed that he had a very vivid nightmare, and they let him sleep in their bed that night and figured that would be the end of it. Now, a week after that, Barbara was kind of dozing off in the front room one evening, and in the meantime, Noelle was trying to put the boys to bed. And she was kind of in that state between waking and sleeping, where you're still aware of your surroundings, but you're starting to drift off. And the television was on low, and it kind of provided this nice, gentle background. But she suddenly became aware that somebody else was in the room with her, and it wasn't one of her family members either. And so instantly, she was on full alert. She was shocked to see that there's this elderly woman standing just a few feet away, and not anyone she recognized. Because whoever this woman was dressed entirely in black, with old-fashioned clothing that looked like it belonged in another century of some kind. Her face looked pale and wrinkled, and her eyes just seemed to look right through Barbara. Not really knowing what to do or how to assess the situation further, Barbara just sat right up, and she was about to ask the woman who she was and how had she gotten in, but the woman spoke first. And her voice was cold and detached and raspy. And the woman just said to Barbara, "This looks like a nice place. I could live here." And it was a very odd thing to say, but before Barbara could respond at all, the woman kind of just turned and started shuffling toward the bedroom. And she jumps to follow the strange intruder to say something, to stop her right as she's getting up. The woman reaches the doorway.
Hair in my
Her body
teeth.
dissolves into this thick mist, this thick gray mist, and the cloud of it swirls and coils through the air, and it moves with purpose toward the front door. And Barbara's watching in absolute horror as this mist kind of just squeezes and funnels itself through the letterbox on the door and then disappears into the night. Barbara is left standing there. She's shocked. She's not really sure what to even think or what to do about this. As a matter of fact, she was still very pale and shaking when Noelle came around the corner after putting the boys to bed. And he's like, "What on earth happened to you?" Unlike Leon's experience, Noelle could tell that Barbara wasn't describing a dream. She was wide awake when the mist disappeared. It was at this point that Barbara had decided that she'd had enough. So I want you guys to remember all those comments from the neighbors. Well, she wasn't going to let them dodge her questions any longer. So when she happened to see her elderly neighbor outside one day, the one who had first warned her, she asked, "What the heck is wrong with this place?" It took some convincing, but eventually she and other neighbors finally opened up. They mentioned something about strange lights that people had seen in empty trailers at night, particularly a blue light that seemed to move on its own. Another neighbor who lived near the entrance of the park had a really unsettling story. He told Barbara and Noel that about a year earlier, a woman who had lived in the park claimed she kept seeing the ghost of a cavalier from the English Civil War walking through her trailer. She became so insistent about it that her family eventually had her committed to an asylum. Now, if she had heard these stories when they first arrived, she would have taken any of them seriously. But now, well, things have changed. As if to drive home the reality of their neighbor's claims, the family's experiences only escalated. Leon continued waking up in different positions with the sensation of something against him, and in fact, this became a regular occurrence. Sometimes he would see these horrific-looking goblin creatures, other times he wouldn't, but he always felt their presence looming around. And it got so bad that he began refusing to sleep in his own room. But even when he slept on the couch or in his parents' room, the experiences seemed to follow him. And he wasn't alone either, because his mother, Barbara, began seeing that old woman more frequently. Sometimes she'd appear in the kitchen while Barbara was cooking. Other times she'd be standing in the hallway when Barbara got up to use the bathroom at night, and the woman never said anything else. But she always just stared at Barbara with these kind of hollow, dead eyes before dissolving into mist and escaping through whatever crack or crevice that she could find. Now, as far as Noel, Barbara's husband, he had been very skeptical at first, but soon he had his own stories to tell. He'd hear footsteps in the trailer while everybody was asleep. Doors would open and close on their own. And one night, he even saw the blue light that their neighbors had warned them about, floating past their window like some kind of supernatural searchlight. Desperate, the family tried everything they could think of. They had the trailer blessed by a priest. They burned sage. They even tried sleeping in shifts so somebody was always awake to watch for these entities. But nothing worked. If anything, their efforts just seemed to make things worse. So finally, after 6 months of living like this, they decided they couldn't do it anymore. They'd had enough. They broke their lease, they packed up their belongings, and they moved out of the trailer park.
Hello.
Well,
how are you?
After they left, they decided to do some research into the history of the community and their plot number 73. And what they learned chilled them to the bone. It turned out that their plot was the exact spot where a small cottage once stood in the 1600s. And during the English Civil War, a family of royalist sympathizers had lived in that cottage. When parliamentarian soldiers came through the area, they accused the family of hiding Cavalier soldiers.
How's my audio? Because I keep hearing this song. Crackly. Yeah. Well. This is probably annoying to hear. Is it? Quality's not great. It's not great. I try to vibe it out, but balance. So. It's good. Could be worse then. Oh, I'm so sorry. I do have one more thing. I feel like lately I'm gonna have divine feminine too, but I feel like I need to have the masculines. Okay, well, let's run it.
The soldiers burned the cottage to the ground with the family still inside. The only survivor was an elderly woman who had been out gathering herbs. She returned to find her home in ashes and her family, including children, dead. Now, there's legends around that area that say that she died of grief on the very spot, cursing anyone who would ever live there again. Well, when Barbara and her family learned about this, she felt like she'd been punched right in the gut. Could this have been the old woman she had seen? And as for the goblin-like creatures that terrorized Leon, there's belief that these were the spirits of the 3 children who had died in the fire. Their playful, mischievous behavior in life had been twisted by their violent deaths into something far more nefarious and sinister. Interestingly, a lot of the older folklore from Western Europe draws very strong connections between fairies, goblins, and the dead. So this is very consistent in that regard, which is even more terrifying. And unfortunately, from that day forward, the family rarely spoke publicly about their experiences at Hillcrest Trailer Park. They moved to a different town entirely and tried to put the whole ordeal behind them. But the truth behind everything, well, remained a mystery. Early one morning in October of 2021,
Divine
a
Masculine.
young woman named Jordan was...
Divine Masculine got 2 cards. One is Warrior card, so he has a shield and also a sword here, but Divine Guidance leading him either way. And then the second one is the Divine, and so he is this Divine Masculine energy within him, this protective energy towards Divine Feminine. He also has the Divine backing him, moving through him, offering him support and love, and this love that he feels like he needs to protect his Divine Feminine.
on a sofa bed in the lounge of a luxury spa. This was the first night of a big celebration with her 5 friends.
Kitty!
Jordan's group had decided to commemorate her friend's 1-year anniversary of being in remission from cancer. To celebrate, they had picked the Titanic Spa in Linthwaite, UK, which was built in a converted 16th century mill. They'd spent the previous day getting massages, sitting in saunas, and relaxing. Only one thing was a disappointment. Jordan had drawn the shortest straw when it came to sleeping arrangements. So while her friends got proper beds in the bedrooms, she and one other girl were on the sofa beds in the lounge, but Jordan didn't mind because she was just happy to be there with her friends. But for some reason, she was tossing and turning, and it was sometime between 5 and 6 in the morning. Everything was dead quiet. And so she's just lying there thinking about her trip when she feels this light tickle on the back of her arm. Now, naturally, Jordan thought it was just her hair at first, or maybe a draft, but then she feels it again. And this time it seems more deliberate, like something was actually touching her. When she realizes this, her eyes snap open, and even though the room's still dark, she can sense that something isn't right. And there's actually just enough light filtering in the room from somewhere that she can make out distinct shapes. And as she's lying there, her body starts to lock up and she notices she can't move. The shapes, she can see that it's clearly something. And she's adjusting her eyes more and she's focusing and she realizes these aren't shapes, but a single shape, and it's behind the sofa. And it looks like the top half of the head, like someone short is kind of peeking up from behind the back of the sofa, which is only about 2 feet off the ground. Now, even though
North Scots are laid back until you goof.
this is what it looks like, she still thinks that she just has to be seeing things. This can't be right. Maybe it's a shadow. There has to be an explanation. Now, all of this is unfolding over the course of 4 seconds, obviously, because of how fast our eyes adjust to the light.
It is very much so. I think of Freya, for example, right off the cuff. Fertility goddess, mother goddess, goddess of love, beauty, but also she's a warrior goddess. And I was picking something up about this particular part before I came live tonight. And it's about Boudica. And it gives very much Boudica to me. She didn't go on her rampage against Rome until they invaded her home, until they targeted her children, and until they tried to humiliate her by brutalizing her in order to bully her into submission via shame. Like they wanted to break her spirit. They wanted to break her. Nope.
This is happening, she can start to make out more details. This is a head, but it's a small head. I mean, maybe the size of a toddler's, but that's where all similarities end because this is clearly no child. The skin, from what she could see, is like this silvery gray color with this weird shine to it. The mouth takes up almost half of its face, and inside are very prominent teeth. Further up are these eyes set so far back they almost look like shadows. And above those, sprouting from the top of its head, are individual strands of this nasty black hair. She is so overcome with fear and terror.
I don't blame her. Don't eat that, kitty. That's a cord.
At some point, she musters up enough strength to let out a scream that wakes up the other girl in the room. And when that happens, the lights flick on, and in that instant, whatever this was gone. There's nothing behind the sofa, and there's no sign that anyone's even been there at all. Jordan's friend, who's now very concerned about her, is asking her what's wrong, what did you see, what's happening, and Jordan is very upset, and she just tried her best to explain what happened. But even as she's recounting it, and the words are coming out of her mouth, she just, it sounds crazy, right? Like what I saw a goblin in a luxury spa, and she realizes the other girl probably thinks she just had a terrible nightmare. I mean, even afterwards, Jordan is starting to question her sanity, and she's starting to wonder the same thing. But gosh, it was so flipping vivid. And to make her feel better, they decide, look, you clearly saw something and it really bothered you, so let's go ahead and search the room. And they get up and they're looking behind the sofa and they look in the corner, but obviously, there's nothing there. So eventually, after not finding anything, she comforts Jordan again and they just try to go back to sleep. But after this, Jordan can barely close her eyes until sunrise. Eventually, when she got back home to West Yorkshire, just a couple of days later, she just felt so exhausted, so drained, like whatever she had saw zapped her of energy. So much so that she ended up being so ill that she was literally bedridden for about a week. Now, keep in mind, she had never seen anything like this. She had never experienced anything like this. She just kept convincing herself that this is all just stress related from the trip, that this has all gone to her head. Maybe she picked up a bug or something. But it wasn't too long after all of this that strange things began happening at her own house. At the time, Jordan lived with her in-laws along with her partner. And it was a full house with 4 people, and usually there's always somebody around. But the weird occurrences only seem to happen to just Jordan. Now, first, they started off small. She'd be walking through the house, and she'd catch movement in her peripheral vision, always down near the floor. And, when she turned to look, nothing was there. She's thinking that her imagination is just getting the best of her, that she's going crazy, and that she's still spooked from what happened at the spa. But then things start escalating. One morning, she went to grab her phone, and she couldn't find it anywhere. And she's thinking, well, this is weird. I always keep my phone right here. And so, she searched the entire house, and she's gradually getting more frustrated. And finally, on a whim, for whatever reason, she checked the refrigerator, and there it was, sitting on the shelf next to the milk. Now, of course, she had no memory of putting it there, nor had she ever done anything like that before. And next, she noticed that objects around the house would fall over whenever she walked by. Even things that had been sitting securely on tables or shelves for weeks untouched just fall over. Weird, right? And there's this pile of towels on the table that fell off so many times that Jordan finally just left them on the floor. She wasn't going to try and fight whatever universal force this was. One day, Jordan was doing laundry when she reached into a pile of clothes and felt something weird. It was something kind of squishy and fuzzy. And when she pulled her hand back, she found a bat, like an actual bat, like an animal tangled up in her clothing. So she screamed just out of shock and dropped everything. But by the time her in-laws came in to see what she was screaming about, the bat was just gone, having flown off to some other corner of the house. Now, at this point, she is seriously doubting her sanity. She's convinced that there's something wrong with her, that she's mentally ill, that there's just something wrong. And so the first thing she looked into was that the house had a carbon monoxide alarm. She knew that, well, that's not it. She tried to look in other places, but she couldn't really find much. And easily the strangest part about all of this was that nobody else in the house had any of these experiences. It was only happening to her. Fortunately, she found some confirmation at some point that she wasn't crazy from her best friend, a little dash hound named Wendy. Now, before the trip, the dog was her constant companion, following her everywhere. But now, Wendy was acting strange too. She started growling in empty rooms or from under the covers for no apparent reason. Well, things continued like this until one night. Jordan took Wendy out to the garden to, go potty, and this was part of their nightly routine, as it is with many people with dogs. Now, the garden backed up to a field with a fence about 5.5 feet tall that separated them. And alongside the fence, there was this little table where Jordan's in-laws would put out peanuts for the birds. On this night, Jordan was standing there in the garden, waiting for Wendy to do her business, and all of a sudden, Wendy just starts growling, and she's growling at something over by the peanut table. Jordan looked over, expecting there to be a stray cat or a dog or something, but there's clearly nothing there. So she's like, what? She did, however, hear something. Now, it took her a moment to register what was causing that, but there, by her feet, was a pile of peanuts. And as she watched, another one landed on the ground. She obviously froze because peanuts had to be coming from the direction of the fence. So she slowly turned to look. Her jaw dropped because there, reaching over the top of the fence, was a small, muscular arm, maybe 7 or 8 inches long. And she watched as it grabbed some peanuts from the table and threw them in her direction. Odd enough, but what really made her blood run cold was the skin, because it was clearly the same silvery gray, shiny skin that she'd seen on the creature back at the spa. She did not need to see any more. She knew what this was. She grabbed Wendy, ran back into the house, slammed the door behind her. She knew that whatever she'd seen at the spa had now followed her back home. And these strange occurrences ended up continuing for weeks on end. Jordan would see what she thought was Wendy going into the bathroom, only to find the dog asleep in a completely different room. Door handles would shake violently when nobody was on the other side. And always there were those glimpses of movement near the floor, just out of sight. Now, during this, she kind of kept these experiences bottled up because she knew how crazy it sounded, but she...
I can open your eyes, take you wonder by wonder, over sideways and under a magic carpet ride. A whole new world, a new fantastic point of view. No one to tell us no where to go. Say we're only dreaming. Now I'm in a home. What is that, Cinderella? One at a time. I think that's Cinderella they're playing in my ears. Now I'm in a whole new world with you. Dream is a wish your heart makes when you're fast asleep. You know what I've also been hearing today? Clairaudiently. I wanna go where the people are. Wanna see them dancing, walking around with those, what do you call them? Flipping your fins, you don't get too far. Legs are for climbing, running, climbing. I wanna go where the people are, asking the questions and finding answers.
Not denied anymore. And so finally, in early December, she was out doing some Christmas shopping at another old mill that had been converted into a shop. And she was browsing through a store when an older woman approached her. Now, the woman looked at Jordan with this knowing expression and stated matter-of-factly that
Will my reflection show who I am inside? Look at me. My father's door. Who is that girl I see staring straight back at me? Hi, kitty. What are you doing? Who is that girl I see staring straight back at me? When will my reflection show who I am inside?
had something attached to her. Not only was Jordan taken aback and clearly stunned because she had never seen this woman before, she didn't know who she was, but there's something about the way she carried herself and said it to Jordan that just made her break down. She found herself telling the stranger everything, and the woman kind of just listened and
Jump scare was a jump scare.
matter-of-factly. When Jordan was finished, she explained to her that a low vibrational spiritual entity had attached itself to her at that
stage. You were going to ask if I could sing Reflection, and then I heard it clairaudiently. That's why I started singing it. That's funny. Jump sounds. I didn't mean to scare you. They're in the Orth Peepers.
And now it was feeding off of Jordan's fear. She was instructed to do a cleansing ritual, to get a white candle, open all the windows in her house, light it, and walk through each
Red is
room.
mine.
Told the entity it wasn't welcome, and she should say things like she was filling her life with love and light, and that the entity was not welcome there. But the most important thing, she told Jordan, was to let the candle burn out naturally. Do not blow it out. Only close the windows after the candle is completely done. Jordan, who was beyond desperate, was going to try anything. So she went home, she found a white candle, and just like the stranger instructed, she opened all the windows, even though it was freezing because this was December, and when that was done, she lit the candle. She walked through the house, repeating the phrases the woman had told her, and something strange happened. When she got to the living room, her head suddenly fell back and her jaw went slack, almost like something was leaving her body. Now, it only
An
lasted a
offering.
second, but she felt this incredible
Peace
sense of
offering.
relief wash over her. Now, after that, she continued to the rest of the house, and when the candle finally burned out, she closed all the windows. And just like that, folks, it was over. But just because of the nature of what she went through, she did not talk about these events for 3 years. And eventually, she began sharing her experiences online with others, comparing the creature, the thing she saw, to Gollum from Lord of the Rings. Now, shockingly, she was not alone, because people from Iceland and Mexico reached out saying that they too had seen very similar, almost identical creatures. Now, to this day, Jordan does not know exactly what it was or why it attached itself to her, but she knows that it was very real. And it's made her much more aware of the very thin veil between our world and whatever else is out there. One night in 2003, a young girl named Patty was sleeping on the top bunk of her bed when she suddenly woke up. It was the middle of the night, but somehow she hit her leg against something, and the sharp pain had jolted her awake. But as she lay there in the darkness, waiting for the pain to subside, she had no idea that what she was about to experience would haunt her for the rest of her life. Patty lived with her parents and her 2 sisters in a very modest home. The 3 girls all shared one bedroom, which was cramped but relatively cozy. There were 2 sets of bunk beds. Patty slept on the top one. Her little sister slept on the bottom. Her other sister had her own bunk bed in the opposite corner of the room. Now, the layout of this room was a bit unusual, but it's important to understand the story. Now, Patty's bed was positioned parallel to the door, sandwiched between a regular wall on one side and what they called a cubbyhole wall on the other. In other words, a partial wall that only extended about a quarter of her bed's length.
Did anybody else just feel that in the stomach? My stomach dropped almost like to what I'm nausea for a second. That's what I saw at the same time. A group of witches trying to chant a spell together. Whether it be like over the phone or if they're all in the same room. No. So I'd say they're trying to block the sight and the connection. But that solar plexus sacral energy, that's energy harvesting attempt. No, that's enough for me. You may not, peasant. You may not.
Meant that from her position up on the top bunk, she had a clear view across the room to where her other sister's bed stood in the corner. In the middle of the room, between the 2 beds, were a couple of wardrobes where the girls kept their clothing. Now, even though Patty was still quite young, she'd already noticed something strange about this bedroom. When she and her sisters were playing in other parts of the house, they got along great. They laughed, they played games, everything was normal. But the moment they entered their bedroom, everything changed. They'd instantly become irritable with each other. They'd fight over nothing. It was like that bedroom brought out the worst in them. And it wasn't just their behavior that was affected. Patty had been having terrible nightmares too ever since they moved into this place. And sometimes they were so bad that she would wake up gasping for air. Just a few weeks earlier, she'd had such a severe asthma attack in the middle of the night that she had actually stopped breathing. Her parents had to rush her to the hospital, where the doctors, fortunately, managed to save her life. And they said it was just asthma. But Patty couldn't shake the feeling that there was something about the room and the nightmares that was making her very, very sick. So on this particular night, as Patty is lying there in the dark, nursing her sore leg, she's already a little on edge. The room's quiet, except for her sister's breathing, and there's moonlight coming through the window. But she's starting to see really strange shadows. Like there's this one down by the foot of the bed that looks way too out of place. And then Patty realizes that that's not ordinary. There, at the foot of her bed, right there in the narrow space between it and the cubbyhole wall, is now a figure. And she thinks that it's one of the nightmares. And so she's blinking hard, trying to clear her vision. And Patty makes a horrifying realization. She notices that this thing has eyes. And they're glowing this kind of eerie neon green. It's like nothing she's ever seen. And they're oval shaped, pointed at the ends, and they're huge, much bigger than a person's, and they're just glaring down at her. As her eyes are adjusting more to this, she can make out more of the details, and it's much taller than the bunk bed itself, which means that it has to be at least 6 feet, and its body is long and lanky, like a skeleton, and she can see it's completely bald. There's no hair anywhere on its head, but strangely, its body doesn't seem to be solid. It's more like it's made of shadows, and she can even see the outline, but it almost looks like fog or smoke because the edges keep shifting and blurring. It makes it impossible to see any real details beyond those terrible eyes. Now, like the other two stories, she's stuck, she can't scream, she can't move, she's just so overcome with fear, she's completely vulnerable to whatever this thing is going to do. And after this goes on for several moments, and this thing just staring there, looking down at her, almost like it's just feeding off of her fear, she finally is able to pull the quilt up over her eyes and prays, and when she looks again, it's gone. So after a few moments, she's able to work up the courage to slowly lower her blanket just enough to peek out, and what she sees makes her heart sink. It's still there, but now it's moved. It's no longer standing by her bed, and instead, it's at the foot of her sister's bed across the room. Those same eyes now fixed on her sleeping sibling, and she just watches in horror as this thing stands there and watches her sister sleep. And she's so scared that all she can do is just pull the quilt back over her head and hide. And she's closing her eyes, she's sobbing, she's crying, she's just praying for this thing to go away. And somehow, every few minutes, she works up just enough courage to peek out again, and each time it's still there. It's still watching her sister. But on maybe the 4th or 5th time she looks, something has changed. It's now gone. So she lowers the blanket all the way, and she looks around the room, and the moonlight seems brighter now, and it's illuminating every corner. And now she could see both of her sisters sleeping peacefully in their beds. She could see their wardrobes, the door, everything exactly as it should be. No sign of this thing anywhere. But after that, she can't sleep, so she just lay there watching and waiting, terrified that it would come back. It never did. And when the sun finally rose and she heard her parents moving around the kitchen, she had never been so relieved. The mother came in to wake the girls up for breakfast, but it didn't take long for her mother's voice to sound confused and even a little angry. She began asking the girls why had they left the bedroom window open all night. Patty was so confused, and she looked over to the window and right away saw what her mother was talking about. The bedroom window was wide open and it was freezing. And to make matters worse, it had been raining all night. So now the windowsill and the floor beneath it were soaking, and both Patty and her sister just swore that they hadn't opened it, that it had been closed when they went to sleep. Patty tried her best to tell her mother about what she had experienced, but her mother was clearly too upset about the water to even acknowledge what she was saying. Eventually, her mother did hear her, and she just wrote it off. And she explained to Patty that it's a bad dream. Sometimes when we're half asleep, our minds can play tricks on us. Maybe that's what you saw. But there was just something so different about the whole experience, something she had never even came close to experiencing in her whole life. So much so that it has stuck with her to this day. While there are a plethora of logical and rational explanations, many who look at the supernatural side of it suggest that it might have been some kind of demon or goblin. What makes it all even stranger is that after that night, things in the bedroom actually got better. The nightmares stopped, she never got another asthma attack in the room, and she and her sisters even stopped fighting when they were in there. It was like whatever had been causing all the problems had left through that open window and never come back. As stated in the intro of this video, after investigating these 3 cases, my conclusion is simple, that whatever these beings were are all demonic in nature, and for whatever reason, they wanted to feed off these people's fears.
Yeah, man. But I just sent a whole bunch of Reiki out. There was Hope and Healing Reiki just as a general. I also did a full chakra alignment, although I was told to just pause on the crown, so we'll work on more of the crown when I come back, or when I call to make another post or something. But I don't want to overwhelm anybody right now, so I'm just going to let it regulate out for a minute. And what I was given the clearance to do, and I don't like this, was the diamond Reiki that I do. And it's very good at cleansing out the aura and really the whole system. It's very crisp and clear. It does cover the crown and the third eye. It just wasn't a direct activation this time. Meaning there's a separate energy that goes through with just the crown. This one was kind of an overall energy, but it does also hit the crown. So we did cover all our bases. I did a number of shields as well, protective shields, and like mirror shields, cloaking, almost like cloaking shields, not to keep you from energies that are a good match or vibrational fit for you, but definitely just like to shield from dark energies. So really just as a whole, but there were a few more things too. We did the cord cutting, and always comes with a suture, like suture and cauterization. And then I also got some past life Reiki. There was some energy where I saw bullet holes, very likely from a war. I may have been thinking like mob crime or mafia crime or something. Somebody may have been a target of something, or even like inheritance theft, or I don't know. I'm seeing people even be chased through the woods. It's wild, but gun, like bullet wounds and arrows, especially in the stomach region. Some also in like the lower, like the feet. Probably battle wounds, flying arrows everywhere. There was also yeah, that was mostly it. My darling, I am being called to cap it right there for now. I will dust you off with a more black. My kitty's ready for sleep too. This kitty. Sweet dreams. 1, 2, 3. I'll get him. I see that. Cheers. No, not here. Bye. He's gone. I put him in the teapot. Eva. Cheers. So very welcome. Great. I'm gonna try to be a killjoy in my tea corner. Or on my yoga mat. Don't do that. I didn't see what mean things he was saying. I mean, I saw like him saying some weird thing to Rusty, which you should dismiss. Please don't take that. Don't internalize that. Dismiss the peasantry. Absolutely not. And then I saw him say something like, first of all, who do you think you are? Also, how old do you think we are? You know? Like, and how old are you? Get out. I hear Caramel by Sleep Token in my ears. Clairaudiently, that's right. Dismiss. I'm not quite done with my bowl yet. I'll give you one more. Well, Cinderella lost her sock. There you go, ladies. You ready for Betty Bye? Mommy's gotta go switch the laundry first. And Luke can lay down with you. Cheers. How's my audio? Is it still crackly? Or tinny? Yeah. A little tinny. That's okay. That's okay. I just keep hearing some music, but I'll put a pin in that until next time. What I will do is send just a little bit more Reiki. This one will help with sleep if anybody's having trouble sleeping. Try the 4-7-8 method. If you have trouble sleeping, first of all, turning off devices an hour at least before bedtime and like bright lights can help because it activates, like the lights on a phone or a TV, it activates the part of your brain that thinks that it's sunlight. And so it's actually triggering your brain to stay awake. Subsequently, when you're asleep, your breathing slows. It goes really slow, and the breaths are a lot deeper. So you can also trick your brain into producing sleep chemicals, turning out the lights, right, getting it nice and comfortable. Brush your teeth, wash your face. This can also be used for anxiety during the day, but it's a sleep tool as well. So you breathe in for 4 seconds, 4 whole seconds. And then you breathe out for 7 seconds. No, excuse me. Breathe in for 4 seconds. You hold it for 7 seconds. Right, so make sure to count quietly. What this does, I just felt that regulate me actually. Just want to show you. See? There it is. It forces adrenaline. This is what is happening. It kicks adrenaline and any chemicals that keep you awake out of your system, starts releasing them out of your system. While simultaneously causing your brain to produce melatonin naturally so that you can fall asleep and stay asleep. That's what's happening. Why that happens when you do this 4-7-8 method is because that's how, when you're sleeping, your body naturally breathes in a 4-7-8 rhythm. And so even when you're awake, if you're lying down and you're breathing this way, or let's say you're having a panic, try this breathing, or you're stressed, try this breathing technique for a bit. So when you're forcing your body to breathe the way that it would be if you were sleeping, it's kind of tricking your brain into thinking that you are asleep. So it starts producing those relaxation and sleep chemicals, overriding the production of stress chemicals, which will keep you awake. Why? Because adrenaline, cortisol, norepinephrine are like their fight or flight chemicals, right? And during fight or flight situation, you don't need to be sleeping because you're an easy target at that point. You could die. Like if in the, yes, on the human plane, depending on the situation, but we're mammals. Mammals are in the animal kingdom, and so primarily speaking, the way we're wired is when there's a threat, sleep is not the most important thing. Yes, sleep is important, but if you sleep when there's a threat around, you can't defend yourself, or it's more dangerous too. That's why either people end up not being able to sleep, they're in a stress cycle often, or they're lighter sleepers, like they have trouble staying asleep. It's because they're constantly on guard, even in their sleep. It's a primal mammalian response, and you have to reprogram that out. The Body Keeps Score is a really good book to explain how stress and trauma gets stuck in the nervous system and then stays in the body and the muscles and the tension, everything else in the brain. You have to release it. There are ways to do it, but this is a good kind of hack, body hack, biohack, call it, sort of. I don't know about that. That sounds like maybe a fight or flight response. Something like about not feeling safe somewhere subconsciously. Anxiety. It's an anxiety. Don't worry about it. You have a choice. Choice. I talked about this with my doctor today, actually. Like, we all have room to grow, some more than others. But those of us with good hearts and pure intentions, well, in the long run, we don't have anything to worry about and can have clean consciences. I've actually read that those types of people suffer from anxiety of some kind, or some kind of something, some kind of stressor. A lot of these karmic people get haunted in their sleep because they don't acknowledge the reality during the day. But for a lot of empaths and light workers, it can be, I mean, it's not always that. Sometimes they struggle to sleep too, but it's because we're so aware and cognizant and tapped into things. It causes that tension or the stress. Yeah. Keeps your head in a loop. Or your emotions on high, that can affect the hormones and the stress chemicals, whether you sleep or not. But either way, prayer can help. Remember, that was one of the cards that came out earlier. Prayer can help. Mockingbird. Is it a real mockingbird? Those things are so cool. Truly, they're so smart. I love blue jays. Blue jays are the royal bird of the aviary community, actually. They're very smart, too. They're like mockingbirds or mocking jays. Absolutely. They're very clever and, quite frankly, helpfully kind in a number of ways. A lot of animals are not interspecies communicators. They can communicate with their own species, but they stay within their own species of communication. But blue jays, they will do something that most won't. And if there's a threat around, they will even let the chipmunks and the squirrels know about it. And if there's a predator around, let's say there's a falcon around, which is smaller than an eagle, they will start mimicking an eagle's cry, an eagle's call, to scare away the falcon, because falcons are prey to eagles as well. They're very clever. So when there's a threat around, they'll mimic a bigger threat's noise, a bigger threat's call, to scare away the smaller threat. That's still a threat to them as a blue jay. Like, falcons are still predatory towards blue jays. But a blue jay will mimic an eagle's call to scare away the falcon. And then also let like the chipmunks and the squirrels and everything else know. They're very, very kind that way and clever. Very, very brilliant. It's almost a royal battle tactic, truly. Very clever. Yeah, I love them. Very pretty, too. They're beautiful. They're smart. All right, one more for the road. For the sleeps. 478. Recommend. You held a blue jay in your hands once. It's interesting. How did that come about? That's beautiful. I wondered, did it make it? It's not your fault if it didn't. But cheers. I love owls too. I like barn owls actually. Baby barn is quite especially cute. There's a bird sanctuary around here, and often they have owls, rescued owls that were injured. Different varieties, but they usually have some baby barns. Or some barn owls at least. Very cute. Also precious. My old business partner, Mr. the Bug Man, we would often take my daughter on little adventures, either swimming or to a museum or something. And one of the places that we would go was the sanctuary, bird sanctuary. Cheers, my darlings. Sweet dreams. Grand rising for those on the other side of the world. Happy in between for those on the interim. Remember to pray. Do no harm. Take no crap.